Welcome and thank you all for Thank you all for joining us today for the New South Wales SBIR Innovation Research Program webinar. My name is Lewis Bennett. I'm a Senior Project Officer at the Office of the New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineer. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that today we meet on many Aboriginal lands. I myself am joining the meeting from the traditional land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Just some housekeeping before we start. Today's webinar will consist of a 10-minute overview of the SBIR program, followed by a presentation from the Challenge Agency, and we will finish with roughly 30 minutes of question time. Today's webinar is recorded and will be available on the New South Wales SBIR website in the coming days. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it in the Q&A box at the right hand of your screen during the presentation. Today's webinar will focus on the challenge from the Greater Cities Commission involving Urban Heat Island Remediation. We will hold a Q&A session right after their challenge presentation. We will be answering as many of your questions as we can during the Q&A. If we don't have time to get to all of the questions live during the webinar, we will answer any remaining questions and include the responses in the transcript available on the website. Please note that closed captions are available. Click on the CC box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I will now be running you through the details of the SBIR program before we discuss today's specific SBIR challenge. Again, at the end of today's session, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about both the SBIR program and today's challenge. The SBIR program is managed by the Office of the Chief Scientist and Engineer. This office has 4 distinct functions. We produce evidence-based scientific advice to the New South Wales Government on a range of challenges. We support New South Wales research, attracting research talent and infrastructure through the managing of the Research Attraction and Acceleration Program. We promote science outreach and education for both students and the general public, and work alongside academia, government and industry to drive the commercialisation of research excellence in New South Wales. The New South Wales Small Business Innovation and Research Program, SBIR, is an initiative of the New South Wales Government that provides competitive grants to small and medium-sized enterprises to find and commercialise innovative solutions to well-defined problems for New South Wales Government agencies. The 2022 SBIR program will provide up to $12 million in grants to New South Wales SMEs to solve the 7 New South Wales Government challenges. The establishment of the SBIR program was recommended as a priority action of the Turning Ideas into Jobs, Accelerating Research and Development in New South Wales Action Plan. This action plan was developed by the Accelerating R&D in New South Wales Advisory Council, a group of leaders with experience in research, the innovation ecosystem and government policy. The New South Wales SBIR program is currently in its 2nd year and is modelled on similar, successful Australian and international examples. These include the Commonwealth Business Research and Innovation Initiative, the SBIR program in the United States, and the Small Business Research Initiative in the United Kingdom. The SBIR program is an important element of the New South Wales Government's approach to increase innovation and prosperity in New South Wales. Innovation generates the products and services crucial for future jobs and industries, and research and development undertaken in businesses and research organisations are a major source of innovation and should be supported for the whole community and economy to thrive. The SBIR's primary objective is to tap into New South Wales small to medium enterprises R&D to address the needs of the New South Wales Government, with the aim of procuring these solutions. Other benefits of the program include an increase in innovation within government and increased economic development. There are 7 challenges for the 2022 SBIR program. Proposed solutions must address one of these 7 challenges. Each challenge describes a current New South Wales Government agency problem which requires an innovative solution. The challenges are waste recovery and management from HealthShare New South Wales, biosecurity surveillance from the Department of Primary Industries, cultural and linguistically diverse services from New South Wales Health, recycled content verification from the Office of Energy and Climate Change, school zone alerting systems from Transport for New South Wales, Urban Heat Island Remediation from the Greater Cities Commission, and non-invasive vital sign monitoring from Corrective Services. Later in the seminar today, we will discuss today's challenge, Urban Heat Island Remediation. The benefits of the New South Wales SBIR program for participating SMEs include up to $1.1 million in grant funding to develop and commercialise a new technology or service. They get to work alongside the New South Wales Government to pilot and test solutions with the potential of a New South Wales Government contract for successful solutions. They also get to develop and retain intellectual property rights and the right to commercialise and sell solutions in both domestic and global markets. There are also benefits for the New South Wales Government, which include access to innovative solutions to policy and service delivery challenges, insights into different problem-solving approaches through working directly with SMEs, and a sustainable ongoing job creation mechanism. Therefore, our measures for success for the SBIR program are more SMEs established and growing their R&D activities and jobs in New South Wales, New South Wales SMEs translating more ideas into innovative products and services, and the New South Wales government agencies being able to deliver better services to the New South Wales community by using innovative solutions. The SBIR program has 3 phases. Phase 1 is a feasibility study. SMEs will submit proposals to solve one of the 7 challenges. Their proposals are assessed, first against each challenge, and then highlighting proposals that are particularly promising, with each successful applicant receiving a grant of up to $100,000 to conduct a feasibility study over a period of 3 months. Our aim is that we will have 2 SMEs completing a feasibility study for each challenge, and at least 1 for every challenge during the next phase, the proof of concept. Successful feasibility study grantees are invited to apply for Phase 2, the proof of concept phase. Applications will be assessed, and each successful proof of concept grantee will receive up to $1 million to develop a proof of concept over a period of up to 15 months. At the end of that process, Phase 3 is procurement, where New South Wales government agencies will consider purchasing a successful solution. As SBIR participants complete their feasibility studies and proofs of concept, the New South Wales government agency and the SBIR team will work closely with them to provide advice and input and to help them develop their solutions. This occurs via both formal monthly check-ins and updates with all participants, and also through informal interactions and assistance. Post-SBIR, participants are encouraged to take their solutions to other customers and markets. These challenges have been chosen specifically so that they encourage solutions that not only the New South Wales government would consider procuring, but also solutions that could be commercialised and sold to customers beyond the New South Wales government. Applicants must meet the 5 eligibility criteria, which include having an ABN, being a small to medium organisation with less than 200 full-time employees, and being headquartered or conducting the majority of your business in New South Wales. You'll note that there is an eligibility criteria around IP. When we say holding the IP, this doesn't need to be through a formal patent, but we want to ensure that you aren't violating someone else's intellectual property. If you're using your technology, whether patented or not, that's fine. If you're using someone else's technology, that's also fine, as long as you have a license or a right to commercialise. For more information and to view the full eligibility criteria, please refer to the 2022 New South Wales SBIR Program guidelines, which are available on the SBIR website. Applications for feasibility study grants will be evaluated against the following 3 overarching criteria. The first is solution details. Can you describe your proposed solution and how it addresses the challenge? Please describe your solution's current technical readiness and what level you hope to achieve during the study. Additionally, include what makes your solution more innovative or superior to what is currently on the market. The second is commercial details, where you'll describe the commercial potential for your product and your plan for commercialization, including adoption and scaling of your product or service. The priority is first on meeting the needs of the government challenge and then on potential wider market opportunities. Additionally, if you could identify potential commercialization barriers and how these will be mitigated. And finally, on delivery, we need to know, does your company and project team have the appropriate skills and experience, and do you have access to the equipment, technology, infrastructure, and financial resources needed to carry out the project? At this stage, you will be asked to provide a basic project plan, including a budget, risk management plan, and performance measures. We also ask applicants to submit some supporting materials, specifically a video presentation, no longer than 3 minutes, and a project budget. Applicants may also be required to provide profit and loss statements and balance sheets from the last 2 years where these are applicable and available. Eligible applications will be assessed by both the New South Wales Government agency that proposed the challenge and an independent panel of experts with experience in business development, commercialization, venture capital, and entrepreneurship. In terms of writing the application, we would recommend avoiding the use of overly technical and scientific terms, as the application will be assessed by a wide audience, including both non-technical and non-commercial people. There should be a focus on meeting the needs of the challenge, and please include any details and data that support claims that you make. Each question in the application form states which assessment criterion it is being scored against. Try and respond as directly and succinctly to each question asked as possible. There is a word limit for each question, and try to use that word limit fully to make the strongest possible case for your solution. And finally, additional documentation that is referenced throughout the application, such as if you have a detailed business plan, please ensure it is clearly labelled when you attach it to the form. Please read the 2022 New South Wales SBIR Program guidelines before applying. The guidelines set out the SBIR program process and requirements in detail, including the eligibility and assessment criteria, how we assess applications, how we notify applicants and enter into grant agreements with grantees, how we monitor and evaluate performance, and the responsibilities and expectations in relation to the opportunity. You may also wish to consult the New South Wales SBIR FAQs available on our website. When you're ready to apply, you can find the online application form on our website, chiefscientist.nsw.gov.au/SBIR. Applications close at 9:59 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, the 28th of February, 2023. Thank you for your time. I'll now pass over to the Challenge Agency, who will talk through their challenge for today's webinar. Again, at the end of the webinar, we will have a question time where you can ask questions about the SBIR program or this specific challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lewis, and welcome all. My name is Vanessa Gordon. I'm the Director of Placemaking for the Westmead Health and Innovation District at the Greater Cities Commission. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm meeting today with you, and I know we're all coming from different countries, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. It's very relevant in terms of what we can learn from our First Nations and their thousands of years of knowledge and cultural practice, and importantly that if we care for country it will care for us. It is fantastic to partner with the Office of Chief Scientist on this challenge. I'm going to give a brief presentation to frame who we are, what we know about the problem, the challenge, benefits and considerations. We then have the pleasure of being joined by an excellent panel of industry experts, each with different subject matter expertise, but also from areas that have a wealth of guides, documents, knowledge and platforms that can support the challenge. Unfortunately, Beck Dawson is an oncology. I know, like me, many of you will be disappointed, but she's very unwell today. But I do recommend visiting the Resilient Sydney website if you have a chance to do so. Following the panel, they will then have the time, as they were said, for some questions and answers. So a little bit about the Greater Cities Commission. We're a state government agency that's driving Australia's first global city region. It's the Six Cities region in New South Wales. We're doing this to deliver the benefits of global economic scale and local livability for everybody. Our role is to coordinate and align the planning that will shape the future of our region, accelerate the delivery of key innovation districts, and lead discussion on major city shaping issues. So the Greater Cities Commission has released a discussion paper, and it signalled the 6 shapers to create prosperous and livable regions. They work together and stand on their own to be able to reflect the complexity of our 6 cities. One of the key shapers that's framing our ongoing discussion is climate resilient green cities. We also coordinate and align delivery of great placemaking outcomes and the growth of future jobs through a number of innovation districts. So the specific district that is my focus is the Westmead Health and Innovation District in the Central River City. This will be Australia's premier health research and innovation district, an ecosystem for new discoveries, economic growth and global recognition. Westmead will also deliver exceptional place outcomes with enhanced heritage and environmental assets and activated and connected places. We want places for collaboration and spaces for innovation. There are large operational assets and organisations, including 4 major hospitals, universities, research facilities, schools, and a recognised heritage precinct. It also has internationally recognised biomedical capabilities, and research capacity includes the CSIRO, Children's Medical Research Institute, the Marks Institute for Brain Behaviour and Development, the National Institute for Complementary Medicine. I've missed many, but there are many in this, and it's the purple shaded area within that broader precinct that is the district. The district also has a wealth of natural and cultural resources and thousands of years of stories. This area where salt water meets fresh water on the traditional lands of the Darug has been a meeting place for First Nations for tens of thousands of years. It borders Parramatta Park with its extraordinary history and natural beauty, as well as has the confluence of Parramatta and Toongabbie rivers. The waterways really hold stories of the landscapes and are integral to the Darug tangible and intangible connection to the natural world. Bringing back the natural character of the water, especially around this salt marsh country in consultation with traditional custodians, will help to regenerate country and for stories to be shared across the district. So what is the context around urban heat impact and the problem? So we know that urban environments tend to trap more heat than natural environments. It's absorbed by building materials and surfaces and then can radiate and continue releasing heat into the evening. The effect is increased through activities that generate heat, such as vehicle engines, industry, air conditioning, and hot air expelled from air conditioning. And those also create peak energy demand and affect the cost of living. The average temperature in cities is normally 1 to 3 degrees higher than rural regions, and the CSIRO and Bureau of Meteorology estimate that Western Sydney will continue to heat up and experience more extreme heat days. So Western Sydney can experience temperatures up to 10 degrees higher than Eastern Sydney and regularly exceeds 35 degrees in summer. For example, in 2019, Parramatta had 47 days with temperatures over 35 degrees. We also know that only about 7% of wastewater in Sydney is recycled, and that permeable surfaces allow water to penetrate the soil, helping to retain water in the landscape. So not only does this support the growth of trees and green ground cover, which can mitigate urban heat island effect, but also that permeable paving allows water to drain and evaporate through urban surfaces. Now, urban areas often have heat absorbing and impervious surfaces, and it's estimated that these developed urban areas discharge the majority of their stormwater and lose the benefits of water in landscape. The water's to sustain plants, for cooling. So to support cooling and greening, we can both use more recycled water as well as keep water in the catchment, and we need to do this in a way that is safe, and safety is a priority for all the work we do. And why does this matter? So it's really about people and the impact on our communities. How does it negatively impact the well-being of people, their health and their choices? It was called out in the recent Bradfield oration that the urban heat island effect exacerbates the toll heat waves take on vulnerable Australians, including the very young and elderly. It also exacerbates this heat wave effect by affecting people's quality of life. adding to their expenses, where they choose to live, their choices around mobility, whether they walk or drive, to engage in recreation, and adds to demands on the healthcare system. So this has to be a priority as Western Sydney grows. There's not one single solution, but we're looking at how this is one of the many approaches within a system that can continue to build momentum and capacity to address urban heat impacts. If you've not already, I recommend you look at work. There's quite an extraordinary amount of work in this space, which shows the growing expertise and market in this area. Resilient Sydney and the Western Sydney Regional Organisational Councils have some fantastic publications. The Urban Management and Planning at the School of Social Sciences and Western Sydney University, the University of Sydney Heat and Health Research Incubator, the Cooperative Research Centre for Low Carbon Living at University of New South Wales, the work of the local councils, Parramatta and Cumberland. I'm sure I've missed many, and apologies in advance, but there are some fantastic resources available. It's also acknowledged in the 3 compass setting documents for the Innovation District. We have the Westmead Place strategy looking at land use and infrastructure moves, and it calls for the need to incorporate urban heat planning and design responses. The place-based transport strategy has a specific action to mitigate urban heat island effect to make the area more comfortable for walking and cycling. And the public domain strategy has a target of 75% cool surfaces with 8 opportunities identified and a raft of statewide strategies. So there is a compass, there's recognition, and there's a commitment to collaboration on this key issue. So the challenge. Slide. So the challenge, we're looking for innovative solutions that could be trialled at the Westmead Health and Innovation District to mitigate urban heat island effects and or improve the resilience of our systems in response to extreme heat events. To provide some ideas, innovative technology solutions might include, but are not limited to, novel materials that could be incorporated into existing buildings or new builds that mitigate heat island effects by deflecting or reducing heat, built form solutions or green infrastructure to deflect and reduce heat, harness or direct wind or water to reduce urban heat island effects, digital technologies such as smart sensors, Internet of Things, or mobile applications to track, measure, manage and mitigate heat island effects for residents. Urban heat costs are shared by the community, and the impacts are shared by the community, and the benefits are also shared across the community. However, you can see there are multiple policy and strategic drivers for planners, developers, people in construction and development, service and infrastructure, and people who manage buildings and public spaces. I mean, we can look at the estimated costs in terms of this growing market around some of the great work the Western Sydney Regional Organisational Councils has done around calling out some of the impact on energy consumption, health costs and productivity. There was a recent report by AECOM, but it was for the City of Melbourne, that estimated urban heat island effects cost around $300 million annually, impacting multiple systems around health, transport, operation and infrastructure and energy demand. So we know the benefits are multiple, often difficult to quantify at a community level, but a reduction in heat island effects during heat waves presents a major benefit to users of the urban environment, which is all of us. And in terms of some of those economic benefits, I'd really like to call out a piece of work that was done by the Department of Planning and Environment, that they're trialling an interim framework for valuing green infrastructure and public space that calls out the value of some of our amazing assets like our tree canopy and our green infrastructure. So the solution requirements we're looking for is really about delivering a cost-effective technology or methodology to deflect, reduce or harness heat, to establish reliable measurement to capture the impacts and measure mitigation, to improve the resilience of systems that are impacted. So examples of systems could be water, energy, transport, community engagement, healthcare, broadly around those systems that are impacted, and that they can be deployed within the Westmead Health and Innovation District. They could be piloted in the future, subject to further discussions and the ideas that come forward around places like Hawkesbury Road or the Westmead Health Precinct, and they're scalable. And on point 3, thinking broadly about Westmead Health and Innovation District, it's home to 4 hospitals, multiple biomed research facilities. So I think the challenge is, yes, natural systems, but also into other systems like health services, early detection, education, engagement, how to think about peak loads. There's a lot of systemic work that can be done in this area. And so the considerations that we'll be looking at, and really just to end and reinforce my section before we go to the fantastic panel, can cover a range of interventions, and it could be a planning solution, regulation and design. It could be about materials and technology around pallets, placemaking solutions, water sensitive urban design, and system solutions. Agnostic to the type of technology used, it can be a single device, single technology, or integrated and suite of technologies. The proposed solution really, we're looking for something that can be scaled across New South Wales. That would be highly regarded, and the ability to try will be important. And I strongly recommend, if you're looking at this solution, to also reach out to the local councils, City of Parramatta and Cumberland councils, talking to their smart city teams and their planning teams, that it's something that can be implemented. I think it's worth noting this challenge is designed to enable a procurement pathway, but not something that we can guarantee. It still needs to go through a procurement and evaluation process. But I think it's worth thinking about the potential clients and touch points, including the councils. And I've got to note the Cumberland City Council's just won a Planning Institute of Australia award for new planning controls that seek to minimise heat impacts. There's the Western Sydney Regional Organisational Councils. They've just won a Climate Change Adaptation Award for their project Heat Smart Western Sydney. Multiple state government agencies, Western Sydney Local Health District, utility providers, development, construction companies. So the field is large, and I think we want to be delighted and surprised by the initiatives that come forward. So on to the panel discussion. As I mentioned, Beck is unfortunately an apology as she is unwell, but I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our two panel members. I'm so sorry, my slides have just gone a little bit out of whack. Oh, good, I think I've caught up now. My apologies. I'd like to introduce Lyndall Pickering. Lyndall is the Strategic Planning Manager for Healthy Waterways and Environment at Sydney Water. She's leading the development of Sydney Water's strategic blueprint, which identifies the direction Sydney Water can take to enable world-class healthy swimmable waterways and support our thriving city. This includes the role of water-sensitive urban design in driving waterway health improvement and keeping water in the landscape to support cooler, greener, healthier places. Lyndall is also leading research on the stormwater retention effectiveness of water-sensitive urban design assets, as well as the interactions between recycled water, stormwater, and Western Sydney soils. Both research projects will improve our understanding of how to manage soils to improve their health, their carbon and nutrient content, and their ability to retain more water, supporting passive cooling and reducing the impacts of urban heat. Lyndall has recently led Sydney Water's Innovation Festival Design Sprint on how we can reimagine Sydney's water balance by taking a deep dive into the management of the Horse-Rinnepean River. And also a great pleasure introducing Maria Kwiatkowska, has extensive experience in delivering major environmental programs and policy reform in New South Wales across a range of issues, including urban greening, biodiversity, conservation, water management and climate change. She is currently the Director of Greener City at the New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment, where her team recently delivered, congratulations, the Greening Our City's premier priority to plant 1 million trees across Sydney by 2022. The Greener City branch worked across public and private sectors to deliver this priority, which is part of the broader program that aims to improve how green infrastructure is planned for, valued and delivered to create resilient urban areas. So Maria, I might go to you for the first question, and welcome.
Thanks, Vanessa, and hi everyone.
Your team has recently celebrated reaching a very challenging target set for you by the Premier to plant 1 million trees across Sydney. We know tree canopy and green infrastructure has a positive impact on mitigating heat island effects. How have you seen that technology and innovation can support a very natural resource?
Yes, thanks, Vanessa, and pleasure to be on this panel and to hear about this really great challenge. So look, we are incredibly proud to have reached our key milestone of planting 1 million trees under the Greening Our City program, but we're also really mindful of our broader objectives around increasing canopy coverage across the city and reducing the impacts of urban heat. Through the program, we're funded under the Climate Change Fund and have worked with a range of stakeholders from across the public and private sectors to increase urban greening across the city. And one of the great joys of working in this space is the creativity and innovation that I regularly observe. We've been fortunate to fund over 100 tree planting and demonstration projects in the last 3 to 4 years, and under our 2020 grant program we included a green innovation funding stream which was designed to test new approaches to old urban greening challenges. And through that program, we awarded a bit over $2 million to 12 projects, which included projects that tested smart technologies like remote sensing for temperature, soil moisture, and controlling irrigation. So we're seeing a lot of fast advances in this space, and we've, for example, Hawkesbury, one of the projects we funded, Hawkesbury Council's testing remote controlled drip irrigation to understand supplemental watering requirements of different tree species, as well as other equipment that's testing how trees and green cover perform under different climate conditions. So we're seeing how that sort of hard technology is helping us to understand how we can plan for maintenance and scaling of different solutions. We're also working with Sydney Water and the Australian Botanic Gardens at Mount Annan and Macquarie Uni on the Western Sydney Parklands Arboretum project. That research will test the performance of 15 Australian native tree species that are currently considered suitable for planting in Western Sydney under different watering and soil conditions. Again, we're funding different smart technology components of the project, and as well as a dashboard and analytics that will support real-time assessment of results. That's all really exciting. Look, we're also really conscious that there's heaps of innovative thinking occurring with respect to green infrastructure around things like green roofs, green walls, and metrics for measuring impacts on local environments and microclimates. So while our focus is on the natural world and improving our natural world, improving access to the natural world and reducing those heat impacts, where there's absolutely no doubt that there's a really important role for technology, innovation and creative thinking. So we're really excited to see what projects come through this challenge.
Thanks so much, Maria. I might go now to Lyndall. Lyndall, in terms of waterways and environment, your team has advanced some amazing work at Sydney Water on improving waterway health and also integrated water management, looking at keeping the majority of water in the catchment. I'm going to ask you two questions at once, actually. Can you tell us briefly a little bit about water-sensitive urban design and why it's important to mitigating heat? And are there gaps in information that are limiting our ability to do this as kind of a business as usual?
Thanks, Vanessa. And before I start, I should acknowledge that it's definitely been a whole of Sydney Water effort in implementing some of those initiatives, particularly the ones around urban plunge and swimmability. But it's been exciting to have played a very small part in some of those advances. But in terms of your particular question, I guess when we think water-sensitive urban design, it's really an approach that uses better urban planning and design to help capture and reuse rainwater and stormwater and mimic the natural water cycle more closely than you would otherwise see in developed catchments. And the fundamental issue is that as we develop areas, include and intensify development in our suburbs, we actually shed more water from our landscapes. So you gave a great overview in your introduction, actually. So we provide more impermeable water, more impermeable surfaces, which means that stormwater actually rushes off our urban catchments. We get huge slugs of water into our urban streams, which degrades their quality and also carries more pollutants. But we also don't get that process where water, as you explained in your intro, is absorbed into our landscape and is available to support the water needs of vegetation and trees, and is also there in our soils to provide that slow base flow of water to provide sustenance to our waterways in dry times. So when we develop, we fundamentally change those characteristics of the urban water cycle. And of course, when there's not water available to be evapotranspired by the sun, that sun's energy actually actually helps exacerbate the urban heat island effect as well. So it's a matter of the materials that we're adding into our catchments and those heat-inducing activities we're having, but it's also because of how we change our urban water cycle. So obviously water-sensitive urban design has a really key role in both improving waterway health and addressing urban heat, because it aims to provide more water in the landscape, and that obviously supports tree growth, thriving canopy that can provide shading, as well as those evapotranspiration cooling benefits. So that's where we see the key role of water-sensitive urban design. But I guess, it's got those co-benefits as well. And I really loved seeing, your information on how you're planning the place design of the innovation district, because water-sensitive urban design does actually reintroduce the beauty back into our landscapes. And it also provides those opportunities for us to interact with our places, interact with our waterways, but, creating permeable urban environments for us to walk through and enjoy as well. And then I guess in terms of the second part of your question, is like, where are the information gaps, or what are the issues that I guess are preventing us applying water-sensitive urban design more broadly? And I know this is a seminar about quite a lot about technology and materials, but I think part of the issue it's about governance and it's about incentives and decisions, as a lot of our intractable problems are. Obviously, we've got incentives to provide for immediate human needs, and there's clear financial benefits to creating buildings and roads and other forms of hard infrastructure. They're very quantifiable, so that's what we tend to do. But at the moment, the way our decisions work, it's potentially less easy to quantify the benefits of providing areas that retain stormwater and providing areas that are buffer vegetation and retaining trees, or actually providing areas of lots of high-performing water-sensitive urban design, because, those are benefits that accrue over time. So part of it is our decisions and our incentive systems. So can we actually view green infrastructure in the same way that we view grey infrastructure? It would be unfeasible to think about providing development without access to centralised water and wastewater systems. We'd love to see that the green infrastructure was viewed in the same way that was specified and required in design. And then potentially we can provide incentive mechanisms that also create incentives for us to provide areas that are pervious and green, and provide those long-term sort of environmental services to the people who use our catchments. But I guess getting to the heart of your question there, in terms of justifying that and helping to create those incentives in the future, we really need to be able to strongly quantify the performance of water-sensitive urban design infrastructure. And I'll do a shout out now. I think Dale from E2 Design Lab is on the call. E2 Design Lab and Sydney Water have been doing some preliminary research. Hi, Dale. To actually quantify the performance of water-sensitive urban design, so that we can embed it in planning and ensure that our modelling tools are actually sufficient to tell us what performance we're going to get. And this is really important as we see more intensification of development. We really need to make sure our water-sensitive urban design assets do work really hard, so that they can achieve the outcomes that we want for urban cooling and also waterway health. So I think that information gap is really important. So that's about monitoring, it's about long-term monitoring, it's about ensuring that we've got good quality data to feed into models. And I think some of the sort of techniques that Maria mentioned as well about real-time sensors, they're becoming increasingly available, and so we can measure soil moisture, and we can measure soil moisture before and after events, and we can measure urban heat, and if we can measure transpiration from these assets, we can understand the performance better in different types of soils and weather conditions and different types of urban environments. And I think turning that monitoring information into information, both for developers and planners, and also people who are using these places, so that we can understand where it's cool, where it's pleasant to be, and actually help us drive the move to actually specify more water in the landscape. That's probably enough for me. To answer your first question.
It's definitely it's a really rich area thinking about the number of points where there's opportunity to kind of improve with innovation along that spectrum. And I might just, we have time probably for me to go back to Maria for the last question. Maria, it'd be great to hear where your team has done some work in terms of there may not have been a solution immediately kind of to hand, so your team's kind of stepped in terms of innovation space, and what opportunities you see in this space.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, look, I guess as state government, we're really conscious that in order to achieve our green infrastructure, canopy and urban heat mitigation goals, we need to engage across a variety of sectors. So, and local councils have traditionally been a really key partner for us in looking for opportunities to green up public land and provide benefits to the community. And one area where we've been able to step in and take advantage of the scale of state government is in the provision of data, in the provision of canopy data. So to date, the state government's released relatively coarse canopy data using imagery captured in 2016 and 2019. And we're aware that where individual councils, where they've had the resources, have acquired more detailed data to suit their own needs. And so to provide equity in data access across the city and to enable us to really measure progress and identify priority areas for planting in a more sophisticated way, we've committed to and to take advantage actually of huge advances that have been made in canopy capture technology, including AI and machine learning. We've committed to acquiring new and more granular canopy data across the city this summer. So we've got a plane in the sky today. We've always got our eye out for cloud cover because we keep getting thwarted by La Nina, but we're capturing that data as we speak. We've also committed to capturing data in 2024 and 26, and this really represents a step change in how we're going to be able to analyse our green cover and canopy cover across the city and improve the way we plan future projects and monitor projects and change over time. So we're super excited about that. We've been working really closely with councils, with Beck and her team at Resilience Sydney to make sure we're capturing the data that's needed, that's going to provide the most benefit. And as part of that, there'll also be land surface temperatures also going to be captured. So we're going to be able to overlay or make an assessment of the impact of canopy data on urban heat. So that capture's expected to be released next year. I think Vanessa will circulate some slides with some links to where that information will become available in the future. And I'll probably just end on, I'd really encourage, I think, while we can think of technology in this space of the really obvious things like sensors and metrics or apps or green roof and wall technology, I think some of the greatest benefits and what I'd like to see from projects is creative thinking in the partnership models that are proposed in the opportunities to scale projects, where as Vanessa's covered, we're aware of lots of effort in this space in recent years, and so now it would be really interesting to see proposals for how we can scale that, how we can have innovative financial models, future financing, future transfer of benefits and communication of those benefits, because I think through rewarding partnerships and through communicating those benefits, that's where we will make headway in meeting this enormous challenge. So all the best to everyone, and thanks Vanessa for inviting me along today.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you Maria and thank you Lyndall for participating, and the depth of your expertise and insights in this work is greatly appreciated. Thank you for being very generous and sharing. That ends this section, and very open now to questions from people that have joined us. So back to you, Lewis.
Thank you very much. We currently have one question in the chat so far. Helen, would you like to come off mute and ask your question of the agency?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. My question is just about during the feasibility stage, will there be an opportunity for the successful teams to work with the Western Sydney Area Health people in it. So from a health perspective, if we wanted to develop a solution that involved the the emergency or the health side of the district, would there be availability in that feasibility to work with them on crafting or developing the response and the solution?
Thanks, Helen. That's a great question. I think if people have been successful in moving into that feasibility phase, we would be encouraging collaboration in those discussions. Can't guarantee the outcome of them, but I think we'd definitely be helping to make those introductions to make it as kind of place-specific and place-based as we can.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
If there's no other, if nobody's got
Please
a question right now, I've got another one. Just about Maria, your point, or maybe it was Vanessa, your point about partnerships and encouraging those partnerships. There's obviously 2 months till the deadline for the application. In the feasibility, so let's say if you come to the table with some sort of type of partnership or sort of collaboration, I guess part of the feasibility in my mind would be to actually pursue further partnerships to actually refine the solution. Does that seem reasonable to you, or would you expect that applicants have it all worked out from day one?
We definitely wouldn't expect that applicants have it worked out from day one. The feasibility study we see as quite broad, depending on the solution, as an opportunity for applicants to prove their technology or solution in this space and use it as an opportunity to showcase whatever your solution is. The proof of concept is where certain elements of that can be nailed down and scaled up to really finalize it. But we see the feasibility study as a showcase of your solution.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lewis.
Daniel Griffin is asking, will 3D models and vector drawings of WHID master plan be available?
That's a great question. I think so. The stage of planning for the Westmead Health and Innovation District is really at kind of a structure plan level. So if you have a look at the Westmead Place plan, you'll be able to find the level of detail available. The Westmead Health Innovation District has a number of different landowners and land managers within it, but I think that's probably the best first point of reference. We can put a link in the chat to that document.
That would be great.
It's Catherine from Meshed. Question is regarding partnership. So looking at the criteria, it's terrific that it's focused on New South Wales. So just trying to understand in terms of bringing in potential research partners, my understanding is that they must be based in New South Wales and have a remit in New South Wales. Is that correct?
In terms of partnerships, we are fine with you being partnered with people outside of New South Wales, but the majority of the company performing the actual solution and who is receiving the grant money from the SBIR program, they must be based in or conducting their majority of business within New South Wales, and the solution for the SBIR program should be developed in New South Wales as well.
Terrific. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Are we able to see or share a list of agencies that have joined this call? Tim Muster, would you like to come online and clarify exactly what you mean in terms of who has partnered on the challenge?
Sorry, just finding the unmute button. Yeah, look, just I guess if you're looking for novel partnerships, it kind of helps to know who's kind of interested in, participating. So I guess we don't need to necessarily share intimate details, but I wondered whether the sharing of the organisations or the agencies of which each of us come from to attend this discussion might be possible.
In terms of a full list of who is here, we can upload that on the website when we can get a list from Vanessa of everyone who has represented their team, if that would help. Brian Lim has asked, when we submit a commercialisation plan, is this a plan to work with the New South Wales agency in question, or is this to commercialise with people outside the SBIR program? The answer to that would be a little bit of both. We'd like you to focus first on addressing the government challenge and how this would be scaled up and commercialised. And then a second part of that question would be potential opportunities outside the SBIR program and other markets and how you would scale up towards those opportunities. But the priority, again, is on addressing the challenge first. Vanessa, I believe this question's from you, again from Daniel Griffin. Can we get access to the digital drawing files that formed the place-making document?
I would have to take that on notice. It's a Department of Planning and Environment document, so I'll take that on notice.
Any questions, again, that we take on notice, we'll put answers up on our website in the FAQs.
Great. And we will provide Lewis with, the Greater Cities Commission doesn't hold data really in this space, but we can provide a list of publicly available data sets that are available out there.
I briefly saw a hand up. Is there someone else who'd like to ask a question?
Hi Lewis, it's Eve here from the Greater Cities Commission. I work with Vanessa, and it was really a clarifying question for Tim about the list of agencies. Is it with the interest of trying to find out who else is available for collaboration on a potential pitch?
Yeah, that's exactly the purpose.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, I wonder if Tim, if we're not able to do that, I don't know. I'd have to talk to Lewis about it. But we could also maybe do it the other way, make your details available to participants.
Yeah, either way. So yeah, I guess we'll just take your lead on that. But yeah, I guess there's interest there in collaboration. So thanks for that.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. I will say agencies involved in assessing applications won't be available to partner on this sort of thing. They have to remain outside of that as they're assessing applicants. But we can make other interested parties make known your interest in collaboration on this. Are there any other questions? Follow up.
It's Josh here from Greater Cities Commission. I just had a question for Lyndall. In regards to the recycled water, because it was mentioned by Vanessa, there's 7% used within Sydney's greater region. What opportunities are there to do innovation in recycled water to sort of increase the uptake?
And I guess that also comes down to incentives and pricing as much as it does come down to technology. But certainly, I guess, at the broad scale, Sydney Water is looking at opportunities for how to, sort of somewhat decentralise our large coastal wastewater systems, and that would involve far more recycling of water before that wastewater is discharged into the ocean. So certainly Westmead Parramatta could be well located to take advantage of those macro opportunities. And then I guess at the smaller place advice-based approach, we've got opportunities for far more smaller scale decentralised wastewater, and that could be used for irrigating our public domain and providing water for enhanced tree canopy as well. And when we think about some of the opportunities for water-sensitive urban design and green infrastructure to provide solutions for more specific events, the opportunity for smart tanks to be triggered to provide water for irrigation ahead of heat waves, for example. We could also use those approaches when we're thinking about decentralised recycled water to make it available for those sort of cooling and greening opportunities as well when it's most needed.
Thanks for that.
But I guess just following that train of thought through, Josh, I say that broadly it's a governance and pricing and decision-making issue around recycling water at the Sydney scale, but at the local scale there might be technological opportunities as well to improve opportunities and make it cost-effective on a smaller scale.
We have a question from Daniel. Are there more details on the content requirement for the 3-minute video? Yes, the online application form does include requirements of that video. The main purpose is a really quick summary of your solution and the benefits, and again, how it is superior to what's on the market.
Wonder if there's any other questions.
There was one in the chat around morbidity data. I don't know if you saw that one from Helen. Is there any data available from applicants relating to death and mobility rates in Western Sydney?
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. I did miss that one. I would probably have. I think there's research available, but not that the GCC holds. But let me take that on notice as well.
Great question.
I think check out the work that Wesrock's done. Might have some of that research embedded in it.
If there are no further questions, I might close this up for today. Again, thank you, Lyndall and Maria and Vanessa for your presentation and your whole team for coming along and presenting today. And I'd like to thank all of our attendees for coming along and showing interest in the SBIR program. Have a great afternoon and enjoy the break.